Wilkow. We are 43 days away from the presidential election, and the Obama campaign has nothing, and I mean nothing left, but to call Mitt Romney a racist. The dog story failed. The bully and the gay kid failed. Bain killed the steelworker's wife was a flat-out lie. The president was even asked if he was somewhat disturbed that some of these attack ads have no validity. Here he was responding on 60 Minutes with Steve Kroft.
Do we see sometimes us going overboard in our campaign? Are there mistakes that are made? Are there, areas where there's no doubt that somebody could dispute how we are presenting things? That happens in politics.
I'm sorry, you have no control over the message of your own campaign. You have no say-so in these attack ads. Look, Romney doesn't drink, do drugs, or even smoke. He's never cheated on his wife. The guy doesn't have so much as a political parking ticket. And that's the problem. He's so clean, the Democrats are going to have to get even dirtier. Now, you might be asking, how do I know he's so clean? Let me start with the fact that he ran against Ted Kennedy for the Senate in 1994. You know, Ted Kennedy, the epitome of the Democrat machine. If anybody was going to dig up something on Romney, it would have been Ted Kennedy. I'm sure you know Romney lost that race. But here are some of the Kennedy attack ads.
Come out here to Marion, Indiana, and see what your company has done to these people.
We had no rights anymore.
They cut the wages.
We no longer had insurance. Basically cut our throats.
I'd like to say to the people of Massachusetts, if you think it can't happen to you, think again.
Romney favors a $100 billion tax cut for the wealthiest 1% of Americans and billions more in other tax breaks for the rich. Romney, trickle-down economics and a millionaire's tax cut. Whose side is he on? As head of Bain Capital, Romney hired only one woman among 40 top managers. The Globe said the team he put together is exclusively male. Romney's answer? There aren't enough women to recruit who are qualified.
So Bain ruined lives, tax cuts for the rich, and a war on women. Sensing a growing pattern here, Romney also ran for governor of Massachusetts, again against State Treasurer Shannon O'Brien, another liberal Democrat in the party machine. But he beat her by 5 points, but not before the media made a big stink about his tax returns.
Senator Kennedy, when I was running against him, boy, I told him, you've got to release those income tax returns of yours, and he said, no, I value my privacy. And I think he was right, and I was wrong. As a result, I do share his view on this. I'm not going to release my income tax returns.
Anybody remember anybody making a stink about Ted Kennedy not releasing his tax returns? And funny, nothing about college transcripts in there. Again, we see a brewing pattern. Now, Mitt Romney also ran for president in 2008. So if there was any dirt on Mitt Romney, it would be out by now. Now, last week, Mitt Romney released 1,200 pages of tax returns. And on Friday, Roll Call magazine ran this quote from Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, who asked, quote, what else in those returns has Romney manipulated? What we don't know is why he refuses to be straight with the American people about the choices he made in his financial life. When will the American people see the returns he filed before he was running for president? Good for you, Harry. You said manipulated. I guess it's time for the Obama campaign to package that up into a campaign ad and just go around acting like it was an organic soundbite pulled from the news and not at all scripted. Now, whose job would it be to start calling Romney a manipulator? Who would be tasked with getting it embedded into news stories? I'd like you to meet Stephanie Cutter. Yes, that charming scowl belongs to the Democrats' one-woman SWAT team. Or, as former McCain campaign director turned MSNBC analyst Steve Schmidt said of his former nemesis, quote, Stephanie Cutter is arguably the strongest player on either side out there now. She's very, very good on TV as a messenger for the campaign. A little background on this cupcake. Back in the 90s, she worked in the Clinton administration as an associate communications director over at the EPA. Don't know if she was an intern. Being a Massachusetts gal, she was hired by Ted Kennedy in 2001 as his communications director. In 2003, she jumped over to the Kerry campaign as communications director with Kennedy's blessing. When Ted Kennedy endorsed Barack Obama over Hillary Clinton in the 2008 presidential race, it was then she began to be Obama's left-hand woman. See what I did there, left hand? After Obama's win, Cutter was the communications director for the Obama-Biden transition, and she's been with the Obama administration ever since. If Mattel were to put out a dirty politicking Barbie, it would be Stephanie Cutter. Remember when she told the world she had no idea about the details surrounding the death of Joe Sopcik's wife? You remember him. He was the former steel worker at GST Steel who supposedly lost his wife to cancer because the evil Mitt Romney shut down his plant, put him out of work, and it turned out that Romney wasn't even with Bain at the time, and Sopcik's wife actually had her own insurance after her husband lost his job. The fact that no insurance would have saved her from the stage 3 cancer that took her life years later, that was also left out. Now, Stephanie Cutter is here playing stupid.
Because I didn't. I didn't know the facts of when Mr. Sopcik's wife got sick. And I only recently learned them through all of the hysteria over that ad.
That, and she put Joe Sopcik on a conference call with a bunch of journalists to make him the big victim of Mitt Romney. Look, here's the catch-22. It seems obvious to me at this point that the Obama campaign so desperately needs to label Romney a racist. And that would be the lowest of the low. On the other side, conservative and libertarian and even independent voters need to see Romney get tough before November. They need to hear Romney come out and call Obama a socialist or a communist, or at least tie him to the Cloward-Piven strategy. Now, if he did, I wouldn't be surprised to hear Stephanie Cutter and her message minion rebrand any attempt of Romney's to get tough as racist. Now, progressives will once again prove that once you get to the bottom of the barrel, if you lift up the barrel, there's something squirming around below. Now, as the election inches closer, the attack ads are only going to get worse, mark my words, and I can only imagine what the October surprise is going to look like from the Obama campaign. Joining me from Washington, D.C. to discuss how Romney's campaign has to counter is Kirsten Kukowski, the National Press Secretary for the Republican National Committee. Hi, Kirsten.
Hi, how are you?
I mean, at this point, Mitt Romney does have to toughen his message up. I mean, we've seen some of the things that Stephanie Cutter and David Axelrod are capable of, and I'm not seeing a lot of toughness coming out of the Romney campaign. What's he got to do to get tough?
Well, I think you're right. I think you're Stephanie Cutter, David Axelrod, Jay Carney, Jen Psaki, all of the above. They have no shame. They will stop at nothing. Baseless attacks. They don't care about the fact checks because they don't have a president to talk about. So we, I think on our side, whether it's the RNC or the Romney campaign, we are ready. We have 6 weeks left, and I think everybody, completely understands that we need to get out there and we need to be. It's showtime. So what you saw today is you saw a memo from Ed Gillespie, who's obviously been around the block a couple of times when it comes to political presidential
Kirsten, we're having technical difficulties. Can you stay with us? We're going to fix the audio, and we're going to come back with 14 more perfectly executed, as in 14%. That's the advantage that Romney has right now over Obama among middle-class voters. This 14% is from the new Politico George Washington University poll, which looks at voters in battleground states. What will the Democrats throw at Mitt Romney next, and how does the Romney campaign need to react in order to allow his message to resonate with voters? Back with us is Kirsten Kukowski, the Republican National Committee Press Secretary, and I want to bring my friend Trey Ditto, former Deputy Press Secretary during the Bush administration. Kirsten, you were finishing with a point before we had our little technical difficulty about there is no depth at this point that Axelrod and Cutter will not sink to. Is that a problem for Mitt Romney?
No, I don't think it's a problem. I think it's something that we have to be mindful of here at the RNC every single day in our rapid response. I know that Governor Romney's campaign is definitely aware of, and it's something that we have to stay on top of every day. So what we've done is every single time this president actually goes out and does a legitimate interview, we're not talking about some or wherever he's been doing his interviews lately. We're talking about the Univision 4.
All right, Kirsten's having some technical difficulties. I'm going to bring in Trey Ditto. We were playing some attack ads going back to 1994 from Ted Kennedy's campaign. And the funny thing that I noticed was it was Bain ruined my life, Romney believes in tax cuts for the rich, he had a war on women. So basically, if there was any real dirt on Mitt Romney that was going to be an October surprise, if there was something that was going to sink him with voters, after 18 years, wouldn't we know it by now?
It seems that Democrats have thrown everything but the kitchen sink at the Romney campaign, and I'm convinced that kitchen sink was probably subsidized by taxpayers as well. And what I'd like to see is the Romney campaign not only be able to pivot off these attacks. It seems like it's getting them off message a little, but I'd like to see, and we've talked about this, I'd like to see an organized effort from the Romney campaign bringing in their surrogates, bringing in their allies to point out some flaws in the Obama campaign as well.
Even if it's not that tough of a line of attack, I was watching a video, and this is now part of Obama's stump speech, where he says, look at the Republicans, look at Mitt Romney, it's tax cuts when times are good, tax cuts when times are bad, tax cuts to make your love life better, tax cuts to help you lose weight, tax cuts, tax cuts. And I thought, I'm not a campaign guy. I don't do what you do. I don't do what Kirsten does. My immediate response was, well, how come Romney isn't coming out and saying, well, regulations when times are good, regulations when times are bad, regulations to improve your love life, regulations when you need to lose some weight, regulations, regulations, regulations. It seems that and I'm not trying to, you know, burnish my creative credentials. I'm not even seeing that.
It's interesting because the Romney campaign could attack Obama on the truth. It's been 3+ years of a stagnant economy, no job growth, GDP is low, and Obama he can't defend himself for spending taxpayer money and getting absolutely nothing in return. I'd like to see not only a harder pushback from the Romney campaign, but again, something more orchestrated in the battleground states that, and this is something we should get into, is that resonates with the different demographics that are out there. We're talking Hispanics, moms, dads, African Americans. I'd like for them to really micro-target people in the battleground state to find a message really of truth. We're not looking for anything negative that's going to resonate with undecided voters.
Well, Kirsten, Mitt Romney released 1,200 pages of his tax returns, and now Harry Reid is calling him a manipulator. What is the rapid response to that?
Well, first and foremost, it's to point out that Harry Reid hasn't released any of his tax returns. So I don't think we take we put a lot of stock in what Harry Reid has to say on this race, and I think he's really lost a lot of credibility with the reporters who are covering this race each and every day. So I think that's really a side issue. I really think what we're focused on doing is like I heard you guys talking about earlier, it is responding when the president is speaking the truth, but speaking the truth that we don't hear very often. So what we heard last night on CBS interview, the president started talking about how of course his campaign makes mistakes, and they've overdone it on ads. Well, this is the same president who sells the hope and change message every time he's out in the battleground states. So it's our job, Governor Romney's job, obviously Paul Ryan's job, to go out there in those same battleground states and fight back and say, this isn't the president who he said he was. He is selling us a bad bill of goods. And so that's something that we're really focused on every day.
You know, it's funny, Jill Biden gave a gentle distraction with a gesture at a campaign stop, but to have the president actually pretend that these ads are just far beyond his control, I mean, come on. I mean, whether it's a super PAC ad, they don't want to make the president look bad. They have to know if they're lying, it's going to make the president look bad. If they're official campaign communications, he's definitely involved with the messaging there.
Oh, of course, of course. He sent his top campaign advisors, his campaign manager out for the Priorities USA and these groups that are running these ads. Not to mention, he personally signs off on every single ad his campaign runs. So I think that while he goes out there and tries to distance himself from the negative attack ads, the fact is people are smarter than that. He needs to start giving people a little bit of credit for their intelligence, and I think over the next 6 weeks, people are really going to start understanding that and seeing through it.
You know, when you look at some of the things that Romney says on the stump, look, 8% unemployment, we know that resonates. When he talks about the growth of government, the growth of taxes, all these things, they're right. But, I mean, my God, they are up against this Chicago machine. They are up against, on one side, Axelrod out of Chicago, the other side, Cutter out of Massachusetts. She cut her teeth, for lack of a better word, on Democrat politics in the Clinton administration and in the Kennedy Senate office. I mean, if they're not going to get tough And I'm not, it's kind of a struggle here. I don't want to see Romney say or do anything that harms him and harms his credibility. But I think a lot of independent and even libertarian voters and conservative voters need him to point that some of the policies of this administration are socialist.
And I think that when we talk about the negative ads, they're only going to get worse. In the next 30 days, there is a very small group of undecided voters, and campaign history tells us that the ads will only get more negative. The good news is that Romney's had a tough couple weeks, and he's still competitive in battleground states. So what we're looking at is 2 tough weeks. He's still within that margin of error, and I think he has the opportunity, as you see in Ohio, and we've talked about this on your show before, he's finally back out there in the battleground states campaigning with a very strong vice president. They make a very good couple. And what we can hope for is that truth campaign, is here are the facts. You aren't better off than you were 3.5 years ago, and here's the plan that I can lay out that's going to get us to the road to prosperity.
Now, Carson, you got to be bracing for some October surprise. And we just went over this. Mitt Romney is the squeakiest clean guy we could probably, I mean, the guy doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, he has no charges of infidelity in his marriage. I likened it to not even having a political parking ticket in my monologue, which makes me even more afraid, because if it gets to the point where we get to character or skeletons in the closet, if they don't have anything, I have a feeling you haven't seen the bottom of the barrel yet.
Oh, see the bottom of the barrel. They have, like I said before, they have no shame. Of course, we expect it. As somebody who's been in Chicago, done political campaigns in Chicago, we know.
We're having technical difficulties here. I'm going to bring back Trey in here. It's almost to the point now where I fear what's squirming around under the barrel, because if it's the choice between maybe moving the polls a percentage point and winning and not winning, I think ethics, I think morality, I think any sense of goodwill between campaigns goes completely out the window.
And what we've seen from the Obama campaign is really picking at the Romney campaign's heels. They're putting out the Stephanie Cutters each week to pick at them, and I think you hit the nail right on the head. We're waiting for that October silver bullet, and the question is, one, how will the media respond to it? In the past, we've seen the Dan Rathers of the world get very energized about being able to elect a Democrat as president, and we've also seen every mainstream reporter out there flock to Alaska to attack Sarah Palin and her family. So there's no doubt that what the Obama campaign puts out there, liberal media is going to jump right on it.
Oh, I think it's funny that Andrea Mitchell, they couldn't verify this 98 Loyola video, but they ran with the Mitt Romney cell phone camera video. I mean, they didn't even wait. That thing was boom. That was out there packaged and ready. You literally have the president in his own words. You could check with Loyola. It'd take you about 5 minutes to figure out if he did give that speech back in 1998. The campaign didn't deny that the tape was authentic, but they pretended like, we got to wait and see here. Romney video, they went right with it. So I have a feeling if the Obama campaign comes up with something at the last minute, it's good. They're going to run with it first, worry about it second, hope it gets Obama elected, and if there's some apology on November 8th or 9th or whenever the hangover's done, that's when we'll see the apology from the mainstream media.
Well, and what I'd like to see is a better response from the Romney campaign to these issues. That's my biggest concern, is that they're going to get sidetracked with this silver bullet bomb, and it's going to take them off message. And we've talked about it before, is maybe now is the time to reevaluate your staff. Do we have the right crisis people?
You keep saying that. I think you're right.
And I think as we get closer to this first debate, rapid response team, crisis communications teams, I think these need to be put into place with the surrogates to support it if Romney wants to be able to have a fighting chance come Election Day.
All right, thanks, guys. Later on,